All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Chris Reid Show. I'm really excited for this episode. We have United States Senate candidate Kevin Ryan here with us. Kevin, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, of course.
I know you're super busy this time of year, but yeah, we can just get right into it. I know you're a veteran,
Mhm.
correct?
Right.
Marine, former public school teacher. What kind of led you to running for United States Senate? Like, how did you get here today?
Yeah, well, my whole life has been about public service, from back when I was chalking baseball fields for the park district to joining the Marine Corps and then serving as a public school teacher. And, I taught history, I taught AP US Gov, and I served in the Marine Corps. And because I believe in this idea of our democracy. And when Donald Trump got reelected, I'm like, our democracy has reached a critical failure. Like, this is not it. This is not what I risked my life for overseas. This is not the democracy I taught to my students. And so I decided to jump into this race. And as I was thinking about running for office, I had a lot of mentors along the way that kind of showed me the playbook. And the playbook, when I saw it, I proverbially barfed on it, because the playbook, after looking at it, I realized this is how we got to where we are. So the playbook is you spend the entire campaign, like 8, 9 months, basically in a room like this on a telephone, calling people, usually out of state, who are really wealthy and they donate to campaigns a lot. And in fact, it's 1%. 1% of donors fund 80% of campaigns. So you're basically spending all your time on the phone with that 1%. Why? What do you need that money for? Well, it's what we're seeing right now. If you turn on any television channel, you're going to see these ads, the political ads. Also, they're digital now. So on Netflix and streaming services, you see them too. So all that money goes towards those ads. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. The candidates should be going out to the people, right, to listen to them, to share their ideas. And that's what I've been doing. I'm the only candidate in the race to go to all 102 counties, some on multiple occasions. This is my fourth time in Peoria.
Wow.
And if we count Tazewell as well, I mean, I've been in this area about like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the many things I respect about you is you are on the ground every day talking to voters. I mean, what's kind of the vibe right now from your average voter? Like, what are you hearing on a daily basis?
Well, I mean, it largely depends on where you are, but there's a couple through lines, and one of them is affordability, and another one is healthcare. Regardless of where I am, I could be in a small bar in Havana, Illinois, or I could be in downtown Chicago. No one's happy with their healthcare,
Right.
and everyone is kind of struggling to pay bills. And whenever I ask someone, do you think like billionaires, corporations, and special interests should be like determining our elections through the use of money? Everyone across the board says no. So like, why does this happen? Why isn't anyone doing anything about it? And the simple answer is because of the playbook, right? So though the playbook relies on those people and it puts them into office, and if that's what's putting them into office, how can we expect those people to then rewrite the playbook and like take the power away from those moneyed interests?
100%. And it's not even so much right now about left versus right. It's elites versus the normal.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Voter,
Yeah,
person.
we're in Peoria, Illinois. This is a union town, right? It's always been up versus down. It's not left versus right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of people right now just kind of scared and confused on both sides. Oh, they really can't believe what they're seeing on a daily basis from their own government.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about your sweatshirt. You call yourself a New Deal Democrat. What does that mean in simple terms?
So it goes back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt's his first inaugural address, where he says America needs a new deal, right? A new deal for America. And that's why he started coining the term New Deal Democrat. And what that new deal was a shift of focus of the federal government to robustly invest directly into our communities. So direct government intervention and investment into our communities and regions of the country. And New Deal programs, I mean, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are all from the New Deal. Yep. And the Hoover Dam was built by the New Deal, right? So it's amazing what we can do when we marshal the resources of our country together with a purpose and directly appropriate it. So I see the government as the answer to our ills, and that is with the government. The federal government is the only entity that can marshal the tremendous wealth and resources of our country to make those resources work for us. But right now, all those resources are held at the very top 1%, and the 1% use their wealth to protect that and keep their money up there.
Correct. And going deeper on that point, people forget that FDR was elected 4 times.
He was elected so many times that they had to change the rules.
I literally was just going to say that. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Because conservatives were like, oh crap, he's so popular. We may never win again.
Yeah.
You know? And he's interesting. Like he came from a very prestigious family.
Mm-hmm. Class trader, the famous class trader.
You read my mind. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's important to remember. What would you say kind of your top 2 or 3 issues are? I know, like you said, Medicare for all is probably one, getting money out of politics. Like what's really driving your campaign?
Well, I look at there's kind of like 2 pillars of the campaign, and one is the structural reform that we need for our democracy, that we need in order to enact the things that I want, like Medicare for all, universal child care, fully funded public education, like the government services that we need, like funding our government, funding our communities. But those things will not happen. That second pillar will not happen until we address the first pillar, which is the structural reforms we need, which include taking money out of politics through a constitutional amendment that enacts campaign spending limits and bans super PACs, independent expenditures. There's also publicly financed campaigns to allow working class folks and people who are not independently wealthy or no independently wealthy people so that they can run for office. Ranked choice voting to have a more fair vote. And Illinois is a great example of this right now. I mean, we have the Illinois 2nd, 7th, 8th, 9th congressional districts, and now the 4th and the U.S. Senate seat are all open seats, and they all have like 10 candidates.
Yeah.
Right. So that means the person who wins, they're going to win with they could win with 20% of the vote.
Right.
And because everything's so gerrymandered, there's not really a competitive general election, which means that 20% of the people are going to choose, who those members of Congress are going to be, when we should have ranked choice voting to make it more fair, right?
Right. So you said getting money out of politics to just the average person out there.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so important? Like, why is that such a big deal? What does that mean?
Because that's like who our members of Congress work for, right? I mean,
Lobbyists, correct?
It's not just lobbyists; it's donors, corporations. So Senator Durbin on an episode of This American Life said it himself that the American people. This is a quote: "The American people would be shocked, not surprised, shocked if they knew how much time a United States senator spent fundraising." And like on average, members of Congress will spend about a third of their time fundraising on the phone, and they're always running for re-election.
Right.
So if they're spending all their time on the phone, what are they not doing? They're not doing what I'm doing. They're not going out to Cairo and Thebes and Havana, Illinois, and talking to people in these forgotten towns. And these downstate people, they don't just feel forgotten, they are forgotten because they don't have the money, they're not important, right? So all of our members of Congress focus on this 1%, and that's why nothing gets done for the rest of us.
Right. And I don't think the average American realizes just how far right wing this country is. I mean, the average elected Democrat politician does not even support universal health.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
And it's what's even more hilarious about this is or sad really, is all you hear from right wing media is how far left the Democrats have gone when the Democratic Party does not even support universal health care.
Right.
In literally every other developed country, this is not a debate. If you're a citizen of a country, you should have health care. That's one of the fundamentals of what FDR believed. I mean, this is not controversial in any other developed country. And when you talk about, lobbyists and corporations, when the politicians are taking money from the private health insurance companies,
Amen.
do you think they're going to vote to basically put them out of business and give every citizen health care? I've said this before, but the president that finally gets the American people health care is going on Mount Rushmore.
Sure. Yeah. That's of course if Trump doesn't just replace every head with his own.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great point. And it's an issue that we're seeing more, but we're seeing more people campaign on Medicare for all, which I like to see. To me, it feels reminiscent of like End Citizens United, where it's a very popular issue to campaign on. Yeah. But then, Democrats, have often heard Democrats who are in office right now say there's no reason that, the wealthiest country in the world, we can't have health care.
Right.
But there is a reason, and you just said it. It's the $1.7 trillion health industry and the $250 million they pour into our campaigns every single cycle.
Right. And you mentioned earlier the playbook, and this is a really interesting point, but I seen a video not too long ago of Nancy Pelosi in 1994. Nancy Pelosi, one of the most corrupt politicians ever, right? She was on the House floor. This is right when she got into Congress, arguing for a vote on Medicare for all. Now, my point in telling this story is I think a lot of people, they get into politics, they get into public office, and they really do have good
Of
intentions.
course, yeah.
Truly, they have values they want to stay true to. They have policy issues that they really want to focus on. But and this kind of goes into like the conversation. Um, but I think people get in that environment, they get to DC, and they're told from day one, that's pie in the sky. That's not possible. This is how things work here.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's why we need reformers from the outside to step in.
Yes.
When we look at the history of reform in this country, it's always happened when a outsider steps in and forces a reluctant Congress to do the reforms that the majority of people want.
Correct. Correct. And I think good people, they get kind of bogged down by the system over time,
Hmm.
and the years go by and they think, well, I've kind of swayed from this belief, but, at the end of the day, I'm still better than the next person. So it's okay,
No, that's a great point, and I think it helps illuminate why I chose to run for the U.S. Senate as my first elected office. Because people say, "Well, why don't you run for the state house or the Greater Water Reclamation District
Yeah.
commissioner?" Right?
Yes.
And I'm like, "Well, one, I don't know anything about water reclamation, so I don't know. I'm not trying to climb a ladder." But that's the whole thing: is if you climb a ladder within a broken system, then you become in a way tainted by that broken system. Like
Right.
we can't expect people to reform the broken system when they're climbing a ladder within that broken system. So we need to inject like fresh, rejuvenating ideals, like literally idealists. Those same people, when they enter into Congress, say like, I want to make these changes. We need that at all levels of government, and we just can't have them at the state house and then they get smothered by the crushing reality of the status quo. We need reformers and idealists at all levels, including the Senate.
Right, right. So how do you ensure voters? Because I was going through the comments on one of your videos the other day, and there's this lady that commented that said, sounds like you mean well. I agree with you on a lot of issues, but I'm too worried that you're going to be just like every other politician and you're going to get in there and
Mhm.
just roll over and not get anything done. How do you converse with voters in that you're going to stay true to your beliefs and who you are and not take big
Mhm.
money? How do you
Well,
converse with
I
people?
the my answer to that question or that comment is look at how I've been campaigning.
Right.
And that's like the whole point of our campaign is I'm not using the playbook, I'm writing my own because we need a new playbook. And if I'm able to get into office by using that new playbook that focuses on voters and not donors, then I've already won. Right? I'm not beholden to donors or corporations or billionaires or moneyed interests. I'm beholden to the people. And so I've already proven it. And so once I get in there, why would I stoop down to like, oh, I want some money now? Like this is what put me in there. That's why I talk about what puts you into office matters. So if you go by the playbook, what's putting you in office is big money. If you're going by the playbook I'm trying to write, what puts you into office is grassroots popular support, the
Yeah.
people, right? So you're beholden to who puts you in office. And so we need to move away from that playbook and go towards a more grassroots popular support playbook.
Yeah. And that's so true. And again, that goes back to it's not left versus right.
Hmm.
It's the elites versus your average person.
Mm.
Let me see what else I got here. So I want to talk about the debate.
Which one?
UGN
Yeah.
debate. First of all, why were you not invited to that? They only took the top three
Hmm.
candidates. More in the past, they've taken more. And I love that you took it upon yourself. You were outside of the studio
Hmm.
in your tour bus
Hmm.
live streaming. And I
Yep.
tuned into that and I
Good.
thought it was phenomenal.
Great. Thank you.
But break that down because again, it goes back to the playbook of people like you, the system just ignores,
Hmm.
you know? So explain that situation. Why were you not invited? Um,
Yeah, so the criteria that they set up was you had to have raised 500 or $100,000, which we did. We met the fundraising requirement, and then the other criteria was you had to be polling at least 5%. And there's only been one independent poll, and that was over 45 days ago. And we did not. We were at 2%, not 5%. There was another candidate who was famously at 2%, who's now the mayor of New York.
Can I add one point to that?
Yeah.
That is so interesting because now granted, this is one social media platform,
Mhm.
but you have nearly 30,000 Instagram followers,
Mhm.
and the person that is supposedly leading the race barely has 2,000.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that tells you where the
Yeah.
focus is.
Yeah. I mean, across all platforms, we have 70,000
Yeah.
followers. Yeah.
I was just
And I didn't come into this like an influencer.
right,
I'm a
right,
teacher.
right. But you're doing what I think so many people look at the politicians right now in this situation, and they're not doing anything.
Mhm.
And it's so frustrating. So to see what you're doing right now on a daily basis, is just so refreshing. I told you this when we met. But yeah, it's so refreshing to actually have a fighter
Mm.
in the race.
Yeah, people always talk about, oh, I'm a fighter. I'm like, what are you fighting for? You get
Right,
invited to the
right,
debates.
right. For billionaires and
Yeah.
APAC, like, come
And
on.
the other criteria they had, they said that they reserve the right, if it's in the best interest of the electorate, to modify their debate criteria. And so I used that criterion to circulate a letter, and I got 90 elected Democrats from across the state, representing over 200,000 Illinois Democratic primary voters,
Wow.
to say that they wanted me in that debate, that it would be to the benefit of the electorate to include me in the debate. And WGN and their parent company Nexstar just straight up ignored us. They didn't respond to the emails, they didn't respond to our phone calls, and then I showed up at the gate with the letter in my hand, rang the doorbell, and not only did they say that I can't come in, they said we can't even take that letter. Like, we can't send anyone out to grab it. So I just taped it to the gate.
If that story does not prove how broken the system is,
Right.
I don't know what does.
Elected Democrats
Yeah,
want me, from over 35 counties, wanted me in the debate.
yeah,
And they're like, we're just going to ignore you.
yeah. That's crazy. Something I want to talk to you about too is when you look at elected politicians right now, and you'll hear the term, "Oh, I'm a centrist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a moderate." Wouldn't you say that when politicians use that term, they are cloaking their corporatist beliefs, their corruption in an ideological claim? So they'll say, "Oh, no, no, no. I'm not taking money from private health insurance companies. I'm just a moderate on healthcare. I don't support universal healthcare." Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean,
This is what they try to get away with. "Oh, no, no. I'm not corrupt. I'm just a moderate."
yeah.
Centrist.
Every time I hear someone say that they're moderate, I vomit in my mouth a little
Yes.
bit. Because that's like, moderate means you're Republican.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
mean, it's like, because Bill Clinton was the death knell of the New Deal, and he moved the party further to the right, and we just kept moving further to the right because we thought that the way that we win conservative voters is to move further to the right with the party, but that's not true. And Bernie Sanders proved that. And there's a lot of people who, you say what you will about them, who are the Bernie or bust, or they were supporting Bernie, and then when he wasn't the nominee, they supported Trump, right? Because they just wanted something different. They both presented these two different options. Trump was obviously like the worst option, and Bernie
Right.
would have been the best one.
Right. And it's so interesting. I remember watching a town hall on Fox News with Bernie in 2020. This was like right before COVID. And it was amazing how many people stood and applauded Bernie. So it's like when you actually have a conversation with people,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure you've experienced this
Oh yeah.
firsthand, like we really do agree on a lot of issues. And I mean, just going back to the universal healthcare thing, it's like every other country has understood that healthcare cannot be for profit.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you put profits above people, then you have a decision to make of, well, we might have to let this person die because it's not profitable.
Mm-hmm.
I know people that work high up in OSF, in other hospitals,
It's gross.
and it's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah.
And these people are literally like these people high up, they don't have a soul.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're literally talking about people like sheep,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so my point is when you have these honest conversations with people, there's a lot of agreement. You know what I mean? And it's like when the current administration kicks 17 million people off healthcare, off Medicaid, and then has the audacity to get in front of Congress and say, "Oh, the Democrats are the ones that want to take away your Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security." It's insane what we're seeing. So yeah, I always go back to that. It's not left versus right. It's
Up versus down.
uh,
Is and always has been, always will be.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about let's talk about ICE for a little bit. Where are you at on? Do you support abolishing them?
Yeah, I mean it's lost all credibility. I
Yeah,
mean you
yeah,
can't. It's like having like a domestic abuser, right?
right.
It's never going to work. You can't just say like, oh, it's I'm like, no, it's leave, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
so obviously we need to have immigration enforcement, and we can go back to the Immigration Naturalization Service, the INS that we had before the DHS, but it's very clear that ICE has lost all credibility as a law enforcement agency. So
Average people.
yeah,
I
that's the moderate take,
Yes,
right?
yes. And my mom is the perfect example of this. I have never heard her say anything political my entire life,
Mhm,
no matter who was president. But when Renee Good was murdered,
mhm,
she was like, she literally could not believe what she was seeing.
mhm,
She's like, we have masked government officials in the streets of America murdering people,
mhm,
citizens that are just exercising their constitutional rights.
mhm.
You know what I mean? And it's amazing how far we've fallen. And I think the times we're in now are finally enough to wake people up and say, enough is enough. This is what we want. Real change is coming. Out with the old wave of both parties
Mhm.
and in with the new wave. That's
Yes.
why I respect what you're doing so much. And that's why I think, regardless of what happens, you have such a bright future in politics and you have my support
Thank you.
all the way.
Yeah,
Uh,
I keep beating the drum on this one quote of Abraham Lincoln. I mean, it's cliche, but Lincoln is a phenomenal
oh,
writer,
yeah.
and I consider him a close friend from all of his writings that I've read, and a mentor. But the one quote that I keep banging the drum on everywhere I go is a quote he read in 1864. The height of the Civil War, where he said, "The tired dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present."
I just read that quote on your
Yep.
website. Love
Our
that.
our occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with it.
Right. And here's the thing, like a lot of leaders throughout history, and I'm not even just talking in politics necessarily, but they didn't even necessarily want to take on that leadership role, but they felt such a deep moral conviction to rise to the occasion.
Lincoln is one example.
Yes, Dr. King is another,
Mhm,
but they felt just such a deep moral conviction to rise to the occasion,
mhm,
knowing that history would remember, you know? And times we're in now, it's like, I feel like people don't understand. It's like people are going to look back at this moment and look at these elected leaders, and you're going to have to explain why you did absolutely nothing
yeah,
to
why
stop
couldn't
that.
you take at least a moderate
Right,
stance
right,
on ICE?
right, right.
You can't say that ICE has to be ended.
Right. I think people to a greater degree kind of feel helpless.
Mhm,
And I remember thinking this beginning of last year, it's like we're just one person. How much change can we really bring on, right?
mhm,
But if you can just wake up each day and say, I'm going to do one thing today to affect my ecosystem and bring about positive change, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, holy cow, like I did make a difference. You know what I mean? And I felt that way to some degree. And look at what we're doing right now. How many people are going to see this,
mhm,
right? And you never know what change you can bring about. So it's
mhm.
like there is hope out there.
Of course there is.
We just have to keep fighting the good fight. And they want you to give up.
Mhm.
They want you to quit. And if you just do that, then they've won.
Well, that's the mistake that WGN and all these others make, that they think that I'm just gonna sit down and shut up. They think
Right.
I'm just some fringe candidate who's, like, doing this for, like, attention-seeking behavior. I'm like, "No, dog. Like, I did not join the Marine Corps for this."
Right.
Like,
Right.
I quit my job, resigned my position at the Pentagon, like, I bought a school bus. Like, I am all in. I'm both feet in this.
Right. And let's reiterate the points of you're the only candidate in this race to visit every county in Illinois.
Mhm.
You take no big money.
Nope. I've only taken PAC money. I've taken $250 from one PAC, and it's the Center for Free Thought Equality, which is advocates for separation of church and state.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any other areas where you say, "Oh, I absolutely stand out,"
Well,
amongst
sure.
the other
I
candidates?
am the only veteran. I am the only union member. I am the only public school teacher. I don't talk about service. I've been in the trenches of
Right.
public service, the trenches of public school, the front lines in war zones. I execute policy on the ground that they vote for. right? That's the difference. It's like people say, what kind of experience do you have? Like, you have no legislative experience. You're right. I have experience doing the things that they're legislating. I think that's a little bit more important than just sitting up on Capitol Hill and, having staffers write legislation for you while you're out in your car calling donors so you can fundraise for your campaign, right?
Right, right. And clearly having no political experience is not a barrier for,
No, let's look at our
you know what I mean?
let's look at our governor. What elected office did Governor
Right.
Pritzker hold before he ran for a statewide
Right.
executive
Yes.
office?
Yes. Is there anyone in office right now that you kind of admire or you look at and say they're doing it right?
So my litmus test is looking at how they raised money for their campaign, or where do they get their money from, and if the majority, if like 70% of it comes from grassroots donations, that's what we're looking for, because the most of candidates, about 90%, that's a guess, but I would it's somewhere around a large portion of elected members of Congress, it's inverted, where 70% of their funds come from major big donations, whether maxing out individual contributions or from maxed out PAC donations. So one person that I deeply admire for the way that she ran her campaign is AOC. I think she raised and spent, I think, $83,000 in a congressional race against an established Democratic leader in leadership in Congress.
Yeah.
And literally just like wore out the soles of her shoes knocking on doors. Like, you can outspend, but you can't out hustle, right?
Right.
And so
what was she pulling at?
of course. No, and you know
percent?
what? No, what's great was that there was a poll. I forgot the name of the incumbent, but so she was down 34 points in I think in the, like 2 weeks before the election, and then she won by like 18 points. So like that swing, I mean, also shows you how polling is flawed, and there's only one poll that matters, and that's March 17th. And there's only one endorsement that matters, and that's your vote. But yeah, that's I admire that, because that's the way our elections are supposed to be. But the problem is that, like, AOC is the exception that should be the norm, and we need structural reform to make that the norm, right? We have to give working class people the opportunity to run for office,
Right.
and like, we just can't do that with the current fundraising model and campaign finance that we have right
Yeah,
now.
and I would say, looking at the current political climate, there's only a handful of people that are truly fighting back, and she's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, every single elected Democrat, and I said this a year ago, they should be holding live town hall
Yes.
every
Yes.
single night,
Mhm.
saying, this is what happened.
Mhm.
This is what's going on. We're illegally bombing countries that didn't attack us.
Mhm.
We're selling Venezuela's oil, and the president is putting it in his private bank account.
Mhm.
We're cutting 17 million people off their health care. Prices are through the roof. GDP is down. Inflation's up. Unemployment's up. The economy's a disaster. Fight. That, to me, like, that is the lowest barrier of what should be considered acceptable.
Mhm.
You know, it's like 50 years from now, when our grandkids are asking us what the heck we were doing during this time.
Mhm.
I'm talking about elected politicians
Mhm.
and just normal people.
Mhm.
Like, I can't just say, oh, nothing, just going to work. I
Yeah.
didn't even know that was going on. I don't remember. It's like, history will remember. Do something. So
Yeah,
that's why your campaign's so refreshing.
Yeah, I really admire AOC and Bernie Sanders for their anti-oligarchy tour, and I take inspiration from that. And I think that we could, if we win this election, we will have been outspent at least 300-1. And think about the momentum that we take into the Senate with that, right?
Right.
If any one of the three moneyed candidates wins, it might make national headlines for like a day on like page 7, but no one's going to remember, right? If we win, it's going to be global news, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to have so much momentum. And there's a 2-month period between the general election, November 3rd, and January 3rd, when he gets sworn in. And I'm going to take inspiration from AOC and Bernie Sanders, the oligarchy tour, and I'm going to take my joint resolution to amend the Constitution, 28th Amendment, which will take money out of politics, and go on a tour of the red states, just as I've gone on a tour of the red counties in Illinois. Because when I stop in the red counties and I talk to conservative-leaning voters, they're like, yeah, we're fed up with this too.
Yes.
And there's data to back that up.
Yes.
There's so much popular sports, one of the most bipartisan issues, but nothing ever happens because the people in power benefit from this broken system. And so we need someone from the outside to do it. That's why, like, if you want the same old, you want the status quo, vote for any of the moneyed candidates in this race.
But you want nothing to change.
Yeah, want nothing to change, vote for one of them. But like, we need real change. And that's why, and I love that AOC and Bernie Sanders go and talk to conservative leaning voters, because That's what we need to do as Democrats. Democrats fail to do that. They've lost the working class and they've lost rural America because they don't go there. And Illinois is very particular because everything is so gerrymandered that pretty much no elected Democrat in Illinois has to talk to a Republican. Right? There's really no contested. The statewide races are the only ones that could be considered like contested with Republicans.
Right,
And
right,
like they still don't. I mean, so many candidates like still just like stay up in Chicago and the Collar counties. They don't talk to conservative
right,
voters,
right.
and that's how we win them back.
I agree. And let's talk about the primary on March 17th.
Mhm.
Is there a possibility of a runoff? Like, is it only the top candidate? Like,
There's no runoff. It's just a plurality. Whoever gets the most
whoever
votes.
gets the most votes
Mhm.
moves on to the general. Okay. Because let's be real. I mean, whoever wins the primary March 17th,
Wins the general.
yeah.
Exactly.
So, um, okay. So March 17th, that's the date. It's coming up quick.
But that's why we have a shot here, right? Because Cook County and the Collar counties are so fractured from the three moneyed candidates that are all from Cook County that you only need 22% of the vote theoretically to win. And it's possible, right? For a candidate like me to slip in through the cracks as Juliana Stratton and Roger Krishnamurthy are just bludgeoning each other with attack ads. And then you just see how these candidates and how they raise their money and how they spend their money are just, they're actively reinforcing the broken system that delivered us to where we are. And like, how can we trust the people who brought us to this moment to save us from this moment? I find it particularly rich when we have members of the House of Representatives running for the Senate saying like, well, I'm going to fight Trump. I'm like, well, what the hell have you been doing? You've been in Congress for a decade or more.
Right.
And you saw Trump go to the White House first. You saw him instigate an insurrection on the Capitol, and then you let him get reelected. I'm sorry, you have failed. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go home. It's time for a new generation to step up and actually do something about this.
Right, right. The old wave is gone.
Yeah.
They're what got us in the
Yes.
situation in the first place.
Yep.
And I think people are finally waking up to that.
Mhm.
We need more people like you running for office. And for someone watching this who's kind of like they want to make an impact too, what steps did you have to take to be in this position? Like how does someone that wants to make a change rise to the occasion and run for office? Do you have to get a certain amount of signatures? What does it look like?
Yeah, I mean the mechanics of it. You need to you need 10,000 signatures to get on the ballot, say for Senate in Illinois. But really, it comes down to you need to. I think you just really need to believe in it yourself, and you need to know why you're running. And as a first-time candidate, I can confidently say, running this campaign, very grassroots campaign, where most of our money goes towards diesel, that we have no clue what we're doing. Right? We have absolutely no clue what we're doing on the campaign trail, but we know why we're doing it.
Right.
And I think that's more important. And if you know why you're doing something, then the rest will follow. But if you're like really good at campaigning, but you don't have a message, you don't have a candidate, you don't know why you're doing it, or there's some ulterior motive, like, your attention-seeking behavior, you just want to have power, etc.,
Right.
then that's wrong, right? And so we need to focus on people that have the why of why they're doing this. And my why is because this is the democracy that I've committed my entire life towards. And I'm not just going to sit here and watch people just watch as Trump just destroys it all and dismantles it, because like our members of Congress, the incumbents, are going to be fine, right? They get to do their insider trading, right? They get to do book deals. Like they and their families are going to be fine. What about us? Right? What about all the veterans? If we talk about issues that matter to people, there's no veteran. I'm the only veteran in this race. I've never heard a single one of them talk about veterans issue. I've never heard a single one of them say how all veterans should have access to veterans health care. Because right now, you only have access to veterans health care if you have a service-related disability. I think that's wrong. I think you serve this country, you should have access to the Veterans Health Administration. But we don't hear about that, right? We don't hear about the issues that affect working people because...
Right. And do you think like some of the money candidates that you mentioned, they kind of think to themselves, well, I'm in a safe blue state. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to win as long as I win the primary. I'm going to win anyway.
Totally. They can hide in their offices. I mean, my congressman, Mike Quigley, I tried going to his office once and it's like hidden inside of like a multi-unit building. And when I finally found it, the door was locked and it had a buzzer on it. And it felt like I was in a prison. It felt like the Pentagon, right? I used to work in the Pentagon. It reminded me of the Pentagon. And I rang the doorbell and someone didn't come to answer the door. They like came through the voice box and they were like, how can we help you? And you know why I was there? I was there to drop off a piece of mail that got sent to my campaign box that was meant to be sent to his, and it was actually a check. And I was returning, and they couldn't even answer the door. They had to be like, "How can we help you?" Like, you're my member of Congress. I should be able to come to the district office and just open the door and come in and talk to you. Like, why are we? What's up with this barrier? But they can get away with that because the incumbent advantage, inertia, they don't really have to do anything. And don't get me started on the mailers they get to send out with the franking privilege. They only use the franking privilege right before an election so that everyone remind everyone who they are, getting free mail.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they don't have to work hard because they're not going to get challenged. And even if they do get challenged, the system is meant to suppress those challengers so that they
Right.
know they can just coast on inertia. So what's Mike Quigley doing? He's running for mayor and re-election at the same time. I'm like that. If there's nothing that shows, nothing's more indicative that you care more about your own political career than you do about the health of our democracy. What does it say about our district? If he wins the mayorship, that means that we're not going to have representation in Congress for how many months
Right.
until there's a special election? Like, why can't he step down? Because he doesn't think he's going to win? I don't know. I mean, like, come on, man, make up your mind. Like, choose what's best for the people, not
Yeah, I
your
mean,
career.
at the end of the day, these people are cowards. They're cowards. They're corrupt, and history will remember. And they're going to have to explain their actions for the rest of time. But so many of them are
Oh,
just,
but they'll get the book deals and they'll put out and
yeah, they'll be
how they were
yeah,
fighters and like,
yeah,
yeah, we did all this. They're
yeah.
gonna try to shape the narrative, but
Right, right. So what does day one in the Senate look like for Kevin Ryan? Let's say March 17th comes, you win the primary,
yep.
move on to November, you win the general, you're sworn in January. What
Well,
day?
you're skipping over an important part
That's
though.
that's true.
You're skipping over the general election because so at the primary election, I've done the bus tour in the school bus. What I envision for the general election is a riverboat tour
Oh, okay.
of Southern Illinois. So getting like a houseboat on and just go up to all the river towns. But yeah, so we win the general election. We take and essentially the momentum we take from the primary, carry that through the general, and just keep campaigning on this issue. Bring this to the national spotlight.
Yeah.
Because if we bring it to the national spotlight, then we put the electeds in the position to take a stance on it. Like, do you support amending the Constitution to overrule Citizens United and Buckley versus Vallejo? We need to put their feet to the fire because Democrats love the campaign on it. Like, oh, we need to end Citizens United, et
Let's break
cetera.
that down. Citizens United. Why is that such a big deal?
So Citizens United allows super PACs to spend unlimited amounts of money in independent expenditures that are not coordinated with campaigns. One great example is our governor wrote a $5 million check to a super PAC supporting our lieutenant governor, Juliana Stratton, in this race. And that super PAC is now running ads on her behalf. And if you go to her website, actually, I don't know if it's on her website anymore, but they put up these things that are called red boxes where it says like, you should be seeing like ads about this. So they're not coordinating, but they're saying like, this is what we want our ads to look like.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so let's go back. You win the primary,
Mm-hmm.
you move on to the general. Is there even a Republican
Yeah,
opposition?
yeah, there is. I mean, there is. I mean, they'll probably, regardless of who the candidate is. I mean, they could put, Ronald Reagan's like dead body, and they'd still get 40% of the vote, right? I mean, so Illinois is still pretty split. But it's like I think it's somewhere around 40-60, depending on who the candidates are. But like I think Trump got 44% of the vote in Illinois, so like there's still a significant portion of Republican voters in Illinois. But the math just works out that no matter who the Democratic candidate is, like we could, again, on the flip side of it, we could put Joe Biden up for Senate seat, right? And he would still win, right? Even
Yeah,
if he like can't put words together.
yeah.
The Democratic nominee is most likely going to win. Um, so when we win, then we take that momentum, the national spotlight issue of money in politics, and I take that circuitous route from Illinois to Washington, D.C., campaigning in the red states like AOC and Bernie Sanders.
Right.
So that by the time we get to the Senate and I have that joint resolution, I can drop it in the hopper and we already have the popular support. We'll already have the media getting attention on it. And then I'm just going to do a blitz media tour and going to the red states and holding rallies and saying like, we have the opportunity right now to take money out of politics. We put every Democrat on the record. They have to take a stance on it. And then we have to have Republicans go to their independent farmers, their union workers, the rural folk and say like, no, we want to keep big money in politics. They have to look their constituents in
Right.
the eyes and say that.
And going back to that Citizens United case, the Supreme Court case from 2010, I believe,
Mm.
if my understanding is correct, that basically said that money counts as free speech, right? So these politicians, they can just take endless dark money, and that just really even made the problem of money in politics even worse.
Well, actually,
Correct.
well, kind of, but it's a little off. So there was another Supreme Court case that predates Citizens United that we never talk about, and that's Buckley versus Vallejo in 1976. And Buckley versus Vallejo was a case that tried the or examined the 1974 Federal Election Campaign Act. That act put spending limits and contribution limits. The Supreme Court in Buckley versus Vallejo said the spending limits were unconstitutional. So that decision said money is speech because you cannot limit how much a candidate spends on their own behalf because money is a form of speech. But they did uphold the contribution limits, so that's why we have the contribution limits we have today. You fast forward to 2010, Citizens United, that said that corporations are people entitled to First Amendment protection, which is money is speech. So a corporation or a super PAC or an entity can spend unlimited amount of money to run essentially advertising. That's because remember, all money in politics, the 80% of it goes towards advertising. They're trying to buy name recognition. And so someone like our billionaire governor can write a $5 million check when if he can only donate $500 to Juliana Stratton, which he did because that's the contribution limit.
Okay.
But he can donate $5 million to her super PAC because Citizens United protects his right to use his money as speech to fund that super PAC. That super PAC then, it's not affiliated with Juliana's campaign, but it will run ads on behalf of Juliana Stratton, so she doesn't have to. So when she says, I'm the only candidate not taking corporate PAC money, well, who needs corporate PAC money when you have your own personal billionaire-funded super PAC?
Right. So they're saying, oh, Stratton's not taking the $5 million.
Exactly. Yes, you're right. Right.
Her PAC is.
Her super PAC. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
And she has no control over that, right? Because it's not her. It's not her.
Yeah, it's not going to her.
And so what we need is a constitutional amendment to overrule both of those things. And it essentially says that Congress has the authority to regulate spending in elections, including and to identify that corporations are not entitled to protections that humans are.
Correct. For a constitutional amendment, though, don't you need 2/3 of the state?
You need 2/3 of both houses. So there's two ways to do it: a constitutional convention of the states, which has never been done before, and then if it goes through Congress, 2/3 of the House and Senate, and then 3/4 of the states have to ratify it at the state legislature.
So it doesn't require a president.
Does not require the president at all.
See, I was thinking it did.
Nope. So that's why people say, "Well, how are you going to do this under Trump?" Trump doesn't play a role in it, and I'm sure he would try to tip the scale on it, but
What can the Supreme Court step in and?
no, that's the beauty of it because the Supreme Court has to use the Constitution. It has it's judicial review of the Constitution.
Right.
So we're rewriting it, right? We're adding a portion of the document that they have to interpret. So they cannot that's one of the checks of the legislative branch over the judicial branch, that if the judicial branch makes a decision that says it's unconstitutional, well, the legislative branch can overrule it with a constitutional amendment. That's why the Congress has the most power. They say they're three co-equal branches, but when it comes down to it, the legislative branch has the trump card in every case. They can impeach and remove the president, and they can amend the Constitution, so that they have overreach over both the judicial and executive branches.
So you're very confident you can get that through in Congress.
I am. Yes,
I love that.
I am, because again, 78% of Americans support this, including 71% of conservative voters. The only ones who don't support this are those who are holding seats in Congress. That's why no one talks about Buckley versus Vallejo. Right, because Buckley versus Vallejo puts spending limits down, and no elected wants spending limits because then it limits their ability to deter challengers.
Yeah,
right.
And it's so interesting too because for so long the right wing they were obsessed with the judiciary. Think of what.
Oh yeah, they played the long game well. Yeah.
Blocked Supreme Court nominee.
And then what's Chuck Schumer doing? How did Mitch McConnell prove? The Senate has always been defense, right? Defense rules, minority rules, defense. Right. Mitch McConnell proved that. Chuck Schumer is I'm just going to give up. Pull the goalie.
But it's so interesting because they've been obsessed with the judiciary for so long, but the Republican Party has gone so far right over the past 10 plus years that the judges are the only ones that can step in.
I know.
They're our last ray of hope. And I think that's so interesting. I mean, look at the tariff ruling that just came down.
Yeah.
Trump appointed three justices. And so it's even his appointments are like, okay, you can't do
Right.
this.
I think it's very helpful for the credibility of the court, which is hanging loosely, especially
I
with
mean, the
Clarence
wins have
Thomas.
been few.
Like Clarence Thomas needs to be
Oh my
impeached and
God,
removed.
absolutely.
But I do. So I got asked that question once. Like, would you just like do a carte blanche vote no on any judicial nominations from the Trump
Right.
administration? And my response to that is no. I would not do a carte blanche because if there's a qualified judicial nominee, um, and like they're not, I don't see them as a sycophant. It would still be helpful to have a qualified nominee as opposed to not having any nominee. And if it comes down to it, to the example that you're saying, that if conservative judges and justices are ruling against the Trump administration, that really helps the credibility to conservative voters to say like, okay, yeah, you see, like even the conservative Supreme Court said that what Trump is doing is illegal. Can you get on board with that? Or are you going to blame the conservative Supreme Court that he appointed?
Right, right. So when you get in the Senate, who would you support for Senate Majority Leader?
That's a great question. And I one person that I admire for her leadership in getting things done is Alyssa Slotkin. And I think she could be an effective leader. And I think that's why I would support her if she chose to run
What
for
state is she from?
Michigan.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now she's very junior, right? She was just elected. People say she might not have the experience, but again, I think we need a new generation to step up. And while she's definitely like a moderate, and I'm progressive, I just think that both of us coming from national service backgrounds, like she was in the CIA, me being in the military, I think that she possesses leadership skills that are unique and effective, and that she's the right person in this moment, I think, to combat the Trump administration.
Okay. So you mentioned that she's more moderate, you would say. How do you plan on swaying and having conversations with these so-called moderates
Hmm.
to come around to your perspective? Because I mean, the political climate we live in, um, even like we said before, even universal health care, the majority of Democrats don't support. So even Democrats
Hmm.
might call that pie in the sky. How do you plan on effectively communicating um, with your coworkers, I guess you could
Hmm.
say, of no, guys, like this is
Hmm.
the right path to take. This is what we need to do.
Well, remember that when I talked about Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, we can't get to Pillar 2, like universal health care, until we get the structural reforms from Pillar 1. And so the best part of that is that these are largely reforms, starting with money in politics, that even moderates are behind, right? Every single Democrat in elected office says we need to overturn Citizens United,
Correct.
right? And so they're all on board, or at least they say they are. And then when I give them an ability to vote on it, they will have to either go back on their word and be like run out of office,
Right.
or they'll have to support it. So the support is there, and so like we have to focus on this. We have to hyper focus on this. And what's more is we're going to need Republicans too, because we need 2/3 of both houses to pass it. And so by hyper focusing on Pillar 1, on getting money out of politics, that's all that matters, right? That passing that amendment in this moment is all that matters to unclog the log jam of money just distorting our democratic process. Because once we get that out, and if we can enact publicly financed campaigns, we'll start electing the majorities that will enact those things that we want, like universal health care.
Yeah. I love how your philosophy is literally getting to the root of the issue.
Right, we have to, right?
Because I've heard politicians say, I support universal health care, I support a living wage, I support free college, I want to end the wars, all these things. But I don't know if I've really ever heard someone say what you're saying of getting to the root of the cause of getting money out of politics and getting true structural
Hmm.
reform. Because something that conservatives say all the time is, well, the government is corrupt, the government's not doing anything good. In the way the system is set up now, that is true.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean we can't change it. And that doesn't mean we just give up and don't change it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's something I wanted to mention to you too, is we look at the rest of the developed world and other countries, they understand that you can take the best aspects of both socialism and capitalism and you can have a mixed system.
Hmm.
Here in America, we look at this topic as so black and white
Hmm.
of, okay, it's either 100% capitalism or 100% socialism. But when you talk to people, basically everyone outside of your hardcore libertarians believes in a military, believes in fire departments, believes in public park.
No, I think we should have private fire insurance.
I actually have heard that argument. Um, but my point is, everybody to some degree already believes in this mixed system,
Mhm.
right? And it's just a matter of, okay, you believe these things should be off the table, and this is what every other developed country agrees with. And these are countries that ranked higher than us in healthcare, education, public safety, all these things. They understand the concept of a mixed system, right? Where there's certain things in a um, civilized society that are just off the table. Healthcare's off the table. You don't have to worry about it. You get sick, you get care. End of story. Education. We need to invest in public education. Because we need an educated populace
Mhm.
that has a positive impact on all of society, right? So it's like even so-called conservatives, they're just a couple areas away. It's like, okay, you believe in these things, you believe in the public parks, the fire departments. Can we get them just to take healthcare
Mhm.
off the docket? You know what I mean? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like,
do.
you look at the Scandinavian countries, they have the mixed system. There's just basic things in a civilized society that should be off the table. You know what I mean? Like if you believe in uh school lunches, free school lunches, like I think everyone would agree that feeding children is a positive thing.
Mhm.
So that's another example of the big bad government doing something positive. Do you understand?
Mhm.
Understand my point?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the idea of the structural reforms that we need because the system we're not elevating those conservative voters or conservative people who would be like, yeah, that's right, let's feed children, right? That's feed children instead of sending bombs overseas to kill children, right?
Right.
That's like, and those are people that we need to elevate, and that's never going to happen so long as money is just controlling everything.
Right.
Because like, and that's the argument I make to conservative voters because many of them are very constitutionally minded and really believe in adhering to the Constitution, and so it's like, well, is our democracy functioning the way that it should? Or has it been perverted by two Supreme Court decisions that have given money this free reign in our political process? Like, I want to have an election where I want elections where candidates do the nominating paperwork, and then they are candidates and they get equal playing field to share their ideas, thoughts, prospects, hopes, plans for the future, their qualifications, their experience. Every candidate has an equal opportunity, and then the voters take that, they take it into consideration, and then they choose. But that's not what we have. Instead, we have private elections like private health, where if you have $30 million like Raja Krishnamurthy, you can literally buy every second of airtime and just pepper the state with unlimited amount of commercials and hope that you buy the name recognition.
Right. Because he's in the house right now.
He
Right.
is.
Like, and what is he doing? Like, is he fighting back at all?
Well,
It's
so in the last 10 years, he's been in Congress for 5 terms. He has
5 terms.
5 terms. He has sponsored 4 bills that have become public law, and they all rename post offices. Now he says he's doing stuff because he's also co-sponsored 78 bills, I think, that have become law. But co-sponsoring just means like it's like liking on Instagram, right? It's like I strongly support this, and you add my name to it, right? They're not doing anything to actually. Sometimes they do when it's like two people working together, usually bipartisan legislation. But if you ask his peers, they'll tell you. Also, I find it ironic that he's the only incumbent in Congress. He's actually of the three moneyed candidates, Raja is not endorsed by anyone in Congress. Robin Kelly is, Juliana Stratton is, Raja is not. So even his peers are not endorsing him.
That's wild. So what do you attribute that to? Is that just he's just taking
Because
so much money, like he hasn't done
well, so again, so I think in this race, Buckley versus Vallejo and Citizens United, we have two great examples of it. So Juliana Stratton, we just talked about, Citizens United protects Pritzker to donate $5 million to her super PAC. Buckley versus Vallejo, that's what said money was speech, saying that there's contribution limits, but there's no spending limits. So contribution limits are pegged to inflation. Right now, it's $3,500 for an individual, $5,000 for a PAC. At the most you can get is $5,000 a phone call, right? How many phone calls do you need to make and how much time do you have to spend on the phone to raise $19 million when the most you can get is $5,000 at a time?
Right.
Because that's what he brought into this race. He brought $19 million because almost since he got elected for the first term in the House, he has been fundraising. He doesn't do stuff at committee meetings. He doesn't pass legislation. He fundraises so that for the inevitability when Senator Durbin would have to retire. And then that's why he brought $19 million into this race. And then he still outraised Juliana and Robin every quarter because he's so good at fundraising. He's so good at selling a piece of his soul to anyone willing to purchase a piece of it.
So have you or has anyone asked him, hey, where is all this money coming from? Who are your donors?
Oh, I mean, it's all available on the FEC, right?
Is he willing to admit?
I mean, it's so his number one donor is a law firm that donates equally to, actually more disproportionately to Republicans. And then he's got a lot of people from the pharmaceutical and health industry who also donate to it. That might have something to do with the fact that he's the only candidate in this race that will not say Medicare for all. He says he wants to lower the age of Medicare to like 60 or something. Like, how about we lower it to birth?
That is exactly that mindset, that halfway, not even halfway,
Yeah.
10%, I'll make you 10%. That is exactly the mindset that got us into this situation, right? And you look at how we got to where we're at today has really been a decade long thing. I mean, you look at Bill Clinton when he was elected, he was, oh, I'm a new era of Democrat. You know, he believed in triangulation.
Well, Democrats had gotten their ass kicked for
Yeah,
years, right? With
And-
2 terms of Reagan and then Bush.
Right. And he worked to cut the social safety net. And then we all thought with Obama, we were getting FDR 2.0. We were highly disappointing that. And then
Yep.
Hillary was literally the worst possible candidate. You know, the DNC conspired against Bernie in
Totally.
16 and 20. And I remember 16, I was paying attention to it, but I wasn't super engaged. In 20, I was absolutely engaged, and I'm like, "Oh man, Bernie's going to be the candidate. This is amazing."
Just kidding. There's this thing called super delegates.
And it was like, what on earth? Everyone dropped out and supported Biden, and I'm like, here we go. And I will never forget in one of the elections in 2020. This is smack down in the middle of COVID. Okay, the economy's in shambles. Everything's a disaster. People are dying. And you have during a presidential debate, and I think this sums up exactly the position America is in, where you have the opportunity for the so-called left-wing Democratic candidate and Joe Biden to get on that stage and argue that every single American should have health care, that he supports universal health care. Not only does he not do it, but Trump, and this is hilarious, he accused Biden of being for government-run health care.
Which we already have, by the way, with the Veterans Health Administration.
Instead of Biden rising to the occasion, being like, yes, during a pandemic, I do support universal health care. Joe Biden, the so-called left-wing politician, is on a debate stage arguing that he just loves the private health insurance corporations. I'm getting fired up even talking about it because it's so disgusting. But stuff like that just I'll meet you 10%, tweaks around the edges mindset has got to go.
Totally.
And I really think this election, assuming it's free and fair, which the groundwork is already being laid for that not to be happening. That's something I want to get into with you too, if that were to happen. But if we do have a free and fair election, I think the will of the people will finally be shown, and because people are waking up and they're
already seeing it in the elections.
Deep red.
Uh-huh.
What are the couple of the special elections that have happened recently? I believe a Louisiana House seat, which was like a Trump plus 30 district, flipped. There was another Texas special election that was like a Trump plus 25 seat.
Mamdani.
That flipped. Yeah, Mamdani. There was a Maine special election yesterday where a Democrat outperformed. So
and even in Illinois, I think early voting data is showing like at this same time period in 2024, there was like around 3,000 votes cast in the Democratic primary. Now we're at like 20,000 at the same time period. So like people are out. People are pissed. People are voting, which is good. Vote.
Yeah. I mean, I even seen in Texas, Democrat turnout is at record high. They're outpacing Republican.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about that as bleak of a conversation as it is. You know, and I've said this before, but from the election in November, it's 2 whole months from the time the new Congress takes over, and a lot of shenanigans. In 2020, we were this close to a complete constitutional crisis. Do you have any sort of plan in place for, I mean, let's say Trump declares martial law, takes away the voting machines. Is there anything that you can do to say, hey, I won this election. We need to fight. Like what options are on the table?
Well, first, I think like to assuage fears, this would certainly come down to like an emergency decision by the Supreme Court, and I don't think there's any case to be made. And the way that this court has been deciding on cases of Trump using military force in American cities, and the tariffs are a great example. I think that there's no case to be made that like there's to declare martial law or to not have an election or to anything like that. Also, like the states controlling the elections, there's a barrier of there's a buffer between the federal government,
But
right?
I mean, with the SAVE Act, though, that's in the Senate right now. I mean, that's,
Yeah, I don't think that is going to pass.
I don't think so
But
either, but I'll never say never in this day.
and also, I mean, it's important to remember that during the Civil War, we still had an election,
Yeah.
right? So there's no precedent to say we've never not had an election. There's no precedent for it. And if we're fighting a civil war where we're literally committing national suicide, then yes, we can have an election. And in fact, that's where we got vote by mail, because the soldiers they couldn't go to the polling places, and so they
Right.
got the vote by mail.
Right. I mean, I even think to myself, and it's sad that we even have to think this way, but let's say the Supreme Court does come out with a ruling and Trump says, yeah, you and what army? I
Yeah,
have the military.
good old Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, the courts,
Mhm.
they rule a certain way. I'm not going to listen to
Well,
them.
and so here's why it becomes important when we've had these discussions earlier on in this term about lawful orders in the military. Because if the Supreme Court says something is unconstitutional and the president ignores it and directs the military to contravene that, that is a textbook definition of an unlawful order, and the military leaders would have to not follow it. Right? Our
Because,
officers, our uniformed officers, general officers.
because in the military, and this is a key point, military members take an oath to defend the Constitution.
Mhm.
Correct.
Well, the officers do. Enlisted actually do take an oath to the president of the United States, but the oath of enlistment is a little bit different. That they take an oath to follow the orders of the president and the officers appointed over them. And officers, they take the same oath as the president does to the Constitution. And
Okay. So the officers have to stay true to the
yeah,
Constitution.
yeah,
And if they receive an illegal unconstitutional order, they have to ignore it, correct?
they have a duty
They
to
have,
not
correct.
yeah, to not obey it. And this and that, and there was a lot of discussion about this when it came to like deploying military to American cities. And it's important to realize that that decision is meant for our general officers, the generals, right? The ones at the top. They're the ones who will be like, no, this is you've gone too far. And I think also just popular perception. If Trump tried to do anything to stop elections from happening, would be illegal. I believe the Supreme Court would side with that. Any tried to use of the military to declare martial law or do anything like that, I think that they would refuse to obey such orders. And I think the popular sentiment would be there would be such vitriol behind it that we might actually get to a point where the president could be impeached with enough votes even in the Republican House, to say like you could probably get enough Republicans to come up where it's like, yeah, no, we need to have elections. You cannot stop us from having elections. And I think you could also have enough in the Senate to convict and remove him from office.
So you're saying what time frame are you foreseeing this taking place? Is it from the November election to January when the Congress is sworn in, or like when do you?
Well, I'm talking about like with the current Congress right now. And depending on, I mean, and it would depend on when this is all hypothetical, right?
Right, right.
So I mean, say Trump declares martial law, there's gonna be no general election. It would be challenged by pretty much every state in the union to the Supreme Court.
Even the red states?
I would imagine there. I mean, maybe not every state, but I would imagine. I mean, that it would. That's. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd, right? How could any Republican be like, yeah, we shouldn't have elections, right? How? I think that would be there is a limit, right? We saw that with his threats to Greenland, right?
Oh,
there is
give me
there is a limit, and Republicans push back. They can push back. They're choosing not to because they're cowards. But there is a point where I think they will push back. And if they try to do anything with elections, I do think they would. I do think they would push back because there's no way to spin it to say.
Yeah, I'm also afraid on the other hand, though, that so many elected politicians, again, on both sides, they're such careerists that the only thing they care about is their political survival. and they just sold their soul to the system that
Yes, but
talk about.
here's the silver lining in this Congress. There's a disproportionately high amount of Republicans who are not seeking reelection.
Yes, that's true.
So that means they are unafraid to do whatever they want,
Yeah.
right? And so they're the ones who would vote to impeach, and the same in the Senate. They would vote to convict and remove. And so if the president wants to FAFO,
So right. So with the new Congress, let's say we have Democratic House, Democratic Senate. Let's say next year, president and vice president get impeached and removed. The House Speaker then would become president, right? Is that the next next in line? Okay. There's a couple more things I want to talk.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Chicago Bears and their whole stadium deal. I'm a diehard Bears fan.
Me too.
I actually went to my very first game this year when they played the Giants in Chicago. I was at that.
Great season.
Yeah.
Great season.
It was honestly still kind of sad it's over, but like
I know.
back, I'm like, man, that was incredible.
Yeah, it was like the opposite of 2006.
Yeah.
Because they were winning in spite of themselves, right? They were trying to lose, but they were just so good they would keep winning.
I mean, some of my best sports memories of any sport were this year with the Bears.
Yeah, it was great.
But I want to talk about their whole stadium ordeal.
Yeah.
Like, people keep asking me this, like, is it actually possible that they could build a stadium in Indiana? Is that actually
they do whatever they want? I mean, yeah, of course it is. They could. First of all, I say if the Bears are going to move anywhere, if they're going to move out of Chicago, I'll be the first to advocate to put them back to Decatur.
Okay.
Right. Let's go. Let's go back to Decatur Stanley's. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. That's why I think it would be cool to make it so like a team's name is pegged to the locality.
Right.
So that would open up the franchise for a new franchise to come into Chicago. They could be the East Chicago, River Runners, or the the casino, the blackjack dealers, whatever,
Right.
And then we could have Chicago Bears, because no one cares about the McCaskey family. Right. No one cares about them. They care about the team name. That's literally it.
Yeah.
And then where they play.
I mean, they're going to remain the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You look at like the New York Giants, the New York Jets, they play in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So there is precedent.
Well, I mean, St. Louis was in LA, and then the Rams were in LA. Then they were in St. Louis. Now they're back in LA.
I just don't know. Like, how can the state of Illinois allow the Bears to leave Chicago? Like, I just don't get that.
Well, because I mean, the alternative is that they have to give them a handout, right? And like, we can't keep. I mean, I'm a Sox fan too, but like the fact that taxpayers built the new stadium for Reinsdorf, like,
right,
these guys are billionaires. So figure it out.
So the proposition in Indiana, is that not taxpayer funded?
They're doing the same thing. They're like, Indiana's luring them there with tax exemptions, and with I think they're actually getting some taxpayer support as well to build the new stadium.
So you're saying the Indiana taxpayers are fine with footing the bill for a Bear stadium?
Well, not the taxpayers, their legislature. And I think our legislature is not, because we have been screwed over by Reinsdorf with building the White Sox stadium, and then also with the renovation to Soldier Field, and also they want to renovate Soldier Field again, regardless of what happens with where the Bears play.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like, I don't want the Bears to leave. No one does. I mean, my dad has had season tickets since the '90s, and I went to my first game in '98, and they still rip the ticket stubs, right?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love Soldier Field and it was a really cool place, like, just walking around, you can sense how old it is, and you're just like, okay, they need a new stadium.
Oh, see, I disagree. I think it's great.
I do. It is cool because it's got like an old school vibe, but I'm like, oh my God.
I think it's great because, like, I hate these super stadiums. I mean, they're just gaudy, huge, an enormous waste of resources for what? Like, how many homeless people are there in Houston, and they got this giant stadium? Like, we're putting our money in the wrong place. And that's the other thing too. Like, we're gonna have taxpayers fund the construction of a new stadium when, like, we can't fund our public schools. Our public schools are still not fully funded at the state level. But no, let's go ahead and let's give the McCaskies, the billionaires, let's give them a handout. Like, I'm sick of it. I can't, like, I want the Bears, and they've been preying on that, right? They've been taking advantage of their extremely loyal fan base and just squeezing, right? What do they have to show for it? One Super Bowl victory back in 1985 or 86, and then one Super Bowl appearance where they got their asses kicked, right? I mean, what do you have to show for it? No. If you want a stadium, then you need to make the playoffs 5 years in a row. right? How about that? Why don't we make that contingent of
I
like,
tell you what, with this roster, I'll never say never. I like what I see. Their young core is unbelievable. They're going to be good for a very long time.
yeah.
Truly.
What we could what might actually happen? Let's say they move to Indiana, Indiana taxpayers foot the bill. They get fed up, and then they move back to Chicago.
Yeah, I just don't understand how they would be okay with footing the bill.
I think because they're looking for any kind of like
Just
economic stimulus. Like, I
okay.
mean, it would bring a lot. I mean, East Chicago is. Have you ever been to East Chicago
Yeah,
in Indiana? It's not. It smells bad,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
It did.
so it would bring a lot of economic activity to the region. It makes sense,
Right.
and they probably see the cost, or the benefits outweigh the cost, which I could see. But um, yeah, I don't. That's why the only thing I can think of is passing a law that says that they don't own the name Chicago.
What? So they could be like
They'd have to be
the Hammond, Indiana
the East
Bears.
Chicago Bears.
Oh
Yeah,
my
whatever.
gosh.
Because like, I'm sorry if you're not playing in Chicago,
Right,
you don't
right.
get to take that name.
Yeah.
Well, the only place where I'll allow that is Decatur. They go. But
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. I mean, they've been talking about this for so long. It's like anything I hear, I don't actually believe until it's
I know,
done.
I
I
know.
mean, we've been hearing these rumors for years now.
Yeah,
So,
I'm almost at the point where I'm just like, uh, uh, you know, I'm done. I'm almost ready to throw it because they've taken advantage of their fan base so much,
yeah,
so much. They just keep increasing ticket prices. They put out terrible teams, except for this year, right?
yeah.
And it's just like the longevity of the last 30 years of Bears football
Right.
has been trash,
Yeah.
right? With a few notable exceptions. And they're supposed to get handouts from us, and like, come on, get out of
Right.
here. They're resting on their laurels, and they're not doing like what would George Hallis say? You think George Hallis would be? You think he wants his grandson, or not his grandson? Wait, is his grandson? Yeah. You think one of his grandson would be, yeah, we're going to move to East Chicago.
Yeah.
George Hallis is turning over in his grave right now.
Okay. So I do want to switch gears.
Yeah, sorry, I got a lot of notes about the Bears,
No,
obviously.
you're good. I got tired of talking about it too.
What's a weird nexus of policy and
Right.
fandom?
Well, it does affect Illinois, so it's like, okay, real quick, I do want to touch base on the Epstein files real quick. What we are seeing is just it's insane. And so much, we're barely getting any of the files. The ones we do are heavily redacted, which is totally illegal. What what can you do in the Senate to bring these predators to life? Because every single person in those documents that is guilty of crimes,
Mm-hmm.
they need to be shown and they need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I mean,
Yeah.
what now? I've gone through the files, and is it possible? Not 100% of it is true. Of course.
Mm-hmm.
But if 1% of what is in those documents is true, the whole system needs to come down
Mm-hmm.
and they need to be brought to light because it's the most grotesque, insane crimes you could possibly commit. So it's like, what power do you have in the Senate to bring these people to light?
Yeah, I mean, first, the most direct answer is we need an independent Department of Justice to actually prosecute these people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which means that we need to take back the White House and win majorities in the House and Senate. But short of taking back the White House, winning the House and Senate, winning majorities, we need to start having hearings, right? And we need to start like subpoenaing people to come in and testify.
Right. I mean, I was listening to Pam Bondi's, whatever you want to call it, talk in Congress the other.
But have you seen the stock
I
market?
was just gonna say that. She's literally like, okay, yeah, the people in the administration are pedophiles, but I mean, have you seen the stock market? It's up. It's like, what? Um, but yeah, just to see this cover up in real time, and I can't remember what Congressman said it, but he told her to her face, this has been a cover up for decades now, and you are responsible for this part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how these people sleep at night. I guess they're banking on a Trump pardon, which they're going to get at the end of the term, to resolve them of the cover up they're committing. I mean, the law that was signed said explicitly they have to release all of the files unredacted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. Like, we don't have laws in this country if they can just blatantly ignore that. I mean, Trump even signed that.
I know. Well, what Trump has been doing is he pushes the boundary of law. Like, he knows, like, here's the line. I'm going to step over it and wait for the due process that he doesn't afford to individual citizens
Right.
to work itself out through the judicial system to where the courts eventually say like, no, you can't do that, and then he steps back, but the damage is already done.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so that's just been their whole MO through all this. But I think one of the important things about the Epstein files, it proves that, that old quote that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, the the degree of wealth that some individuals hold in the world is so high that they have nearly absolute power. And the Epstein files have shown that they can get away with committing heinous acts and getting away with it
Yeah.
because of that absolute power. And that is that same absolute power that is controlling our electoral process. So if there's ever been an argument of how we need to insulate our democracy from that, it is the Epstein files. If they can get away with raping children, and when it's like broadcast in broad daylight, then what are they doing to our elections, right? That is such a degree of power that has to be insulated from our democracy.
Right. And I really think, and again, this is me trying to logically explain these heinous acts, and you can't, but I really do think these billionaires, they get to such a place of wealth and power, and they feel like they've experienced just every sort of feeling and emotion, whatever you want to call it, possible. And they're like, I don't know what else to do other than to partake in these um heinous crimes against humanity and kids. Like, it's just, again, that's me trying to logically explain it,
Mhm.
but I really think it does speak to the power structure in this country and how depraved these people at the top are. Now, are there some decent, decent, wealthy people? Yeah, I'm sure. But every single person that is, I don't care, left, right, center, I don't care. People are like, well, Bill Clinton's in the files. I don't give a crap.
But yeah, if Bill
I
Clinton,
don't
if
care.
he committed a crime, put him on trial, put him in jail.
Yes. Put him in prison.
Yeah,
Everyone, every name needs brought to light.
yeah.
So I just think, and we've heard for years kind of these, call them conspiracy theories, whatever you want to call them, about, hey, these global elites, they are into some really bad things, and people kind of, some people believe it, some people kind of brush it aside, but now it's been proven basically true,
Mhm.
and I think that that further speaks to kind of the new wave that we're experiencing now, where all these things are being brought to light, and out with the old and in with the new.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Yeah.
okay, just wrapping up, I got some non-political rapid fire
Okay.
questions.
All right. Good. Yeah, it's a nice shift from the Epstein
Yes, I
files.
agree. Let's take a little breather. Favorites? I mean, it might be hard to pick one. You can do two or three. Favorite restaurant or restaurants in Illinois?
Okay. Well, I will say one that pleasantly surprised me is in Illiopolis. Are you familiar with
I'm
Illiopolis?
not.
Illiopolis is the geographic center of Illinois.
Okay.
And during the World War II, it was home to a large munitions depot. And it's near Springfield. It's like maybe like 45 minutes east of Springfield. The geographic center of Illinois is a very small town called Illiopolis. And they have a restaurant called Uncle Monkey's. And it was created by an American and a Chinese person. And they did this like American Chinese fusion. And they have the best crab rangoon
Really?
that I've ever had. And I'm just as shocked saying it to you now that the best crab rangoon I've ever had in my life was in the geographic center of Illinois that used to be a home to a large munitions depot.
Okay. Okay. Noted. Viewers out there, go check it out.
Uncle Monkey's in Illiopolis. Also, they have a Chinese horseshoe. I haven't had it yet, but it's supposed to be pretty good.
Okay. Favorite movie?
You Can't Take It With You by Frank Capra starring Jimmy Stewart. It won Best Picture, I think, in 1934.
Okay. 1934.
Yeah, I love the 30s. I think the 30s and the 50s were excellent years. 30s, 50s, and 70s were the three best decades, I believe, in cinema.
Wow. I don't disagree. Favorite things to do, like, outside of politics? Like, I know you said you're a Bears fan, but
Mhm.
I mean, are you into other sports? Like, what type of hobbies? I know right now you don't have time to.
Yeah, I know. I wish I could go back to, but reading. I love to read. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love reading Shakespeare, and mostly because no one truly, I think, has unpacked the human condition better than him, and it's just so great to read his plays because the plot, he tells you what the plot is in the first scene
Yeah,
usually, and then he just goes into the exploration of what it means to be human. And it's crazy that they were written 400 years ago
yeah,
and they still like apply today.
yeah. I mean, that's what I love about, like, because I'm a big reader too. Reading about past leaders, past events, because it's like you study what people in history went through. I mean, like President Lincoln, for example,
Mm.
and all of a sudden, it's like you feel so much more better equipped to tackle the issues at hand today, because you're like, if they can handle that back then, I can certainly handle this.
Oh, that's an excellent
It
point.
inspires you.
Yeah, because it also reminds you that they're human and that they made a conscious decision to step up and do something, right?
Correct.
And they're human just like us. And like Alice Paul didn't have to go protest outside of the White House. She didn't have to subject herself to torture in prison to
Right.
get the women's right to vote, but she did. And now women have the right to vote,
Yeah.
something that was impossible,
Right.
right?
Things that we take for granted in today's society, we had the people before us, they had to fight for.
Yeah.
And I think,
Normal, ordinary people.
yep,
Yep.
yep. Well, Kevin, I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
been refreshing. One last kind of plug for all your social media, your website. March 17th is the primary.
March 17th is the
Okay.
primary. Yep.
What's your Instagram handle? What's your website? Where can people find?
So you can find us at kevinryan.com, and all of our handles are on kevinryan.com. And kevinryan.com was actually gifted to us. Our original domain is runwithkev.com, as like, this is not about me, it's about all of us. Run with me, and
Yeah.
I like to run. But Kevin Ryan, from a guy from Illinois nonetheless, gave us that domain because he had recently retired, he owned it, and he wanted it to go to a noble cause. So he gave it to us. So you can go to kevinryan.com, and our Instagram is Vote Kevin Ryan, and our Facebook is just Kevin Ryan. So it's probably easier just to go to the website to find the link to that.
Yeah. And your social media is
Yeah.
incredible.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate that.
yeah, keep up the good work. I mean, you have a very bright future in politics, and you have my full-fledged support.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for being on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, same.
So, all right, guys, that's it for this episode of the Chris Reid Show. We'll see you next time. Kevin,
Awesome.
that was amazing.